how to sew a jumper. But for this jumper, I'm going to be making a very simple one without sleeve, but you can always make yours with sleeve. So the first thing I'm going to do is to cut my top body. So to cut that is just our basic body. I'm using here is just your bust measurement divided by 4 plus 1. So my bust measurement is 42, divided by 4 is 10.5, plus 1 is 11.5. So I'm just going to so that's how I folded the fabric. So the next thing I'm going to do is to check my shoulder. So my shoulder is 16 divided by 2, which is 8. Plus I'm going to just come in by 1 inch in, so here, and then on this line I'm going to just come down, mark my armhole, which is about 20 divided by 2, that's going to be 10. So connect it this way, mark my curve, right, and then come down here 1 inch, and then put in my neckline, which is 3 inches, and then come down by 4 inches down. I want it like high neck, and then connect it this way. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to connect this shoulder slope, and then so this is just my to fix in my bust measurement. My bust measurement is the fold of this fabric, which is 42 divided by 4 plus 1, and then I'm going to come down to my waist. My waist measurement is 36 divided by 4, that's 9, plus extra 2 inches, 1 inch of that in, and then 1 inch of seam allowance, so that's 11. I'm going to mark that here, and then I'm going to connect this here. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut this out. So guys, I've gone ahead and cut out the back too. So basically just fold your fabric into 2 again, but this time around leave about 1.5 in between, or 1 inch at the back for your seam allowance, and then you're going to cut everything exactly the same. But the difference is that the one at the back, you're leaving your zip allowance there. So after that, I'm just going to come down here by 1 inch. So 1 inch here, this is going to be my back neckline. So I'm going to just go ahead and cut that out. And then after cutting this out, I'm going to go ahead and also separate the back. So you're supposed to have 2 back panel and 1 front panel. So guys, if you want yours to have sleeve, all you have to do, you not subtract that 1 inch. You're just going to work with your normal shoulder, divide your shoulder measurement by 2, and then just continue. When you're done, you add your sleeve. But because I want this to be sleeveless, I just came in by 1 inch on the shoulder, but I think I still want it to go in a little bit more on the shoulder. So I'm just going to go ahead and subtract maybe another half an inch here, and then just blend it in. I want it right inside of my shoulder, like real sleeveless. So I'm just going to go ahead and just chip off this excess that is here. Just leave yours at 1 inch, but I just trimmed out a little bit more because I want it inside of my shoulder. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to put in my dart. So to put in your dart, all you have to do is to check your nipple to nipple measurement. That's your breast point divided by 2. So for me it's 4. I'm going to mark from my shoulder to my bust, which is 11 here, and then I'm going to come down 1 inch after that, so which is here, and then I'm going to connect it from this point to this point here, and then mark half an inch on each side, and then connect it. So this is going to be my dart. I'm going to notch it here so that I know that I'm going to transfer this dart on the 2 sides in front, and then also at the back. But at the back, my dart is going to go up to my chest line, which is my dart will go up to probably about 8 inches here, and then I'm just going to connect it all the way down. So just connect it. So you see my dart at the back is longer, and then I'm going to mark half an inch on each side and then blend it in. So that's basically it for your front pattern. All you have to do now is to go ahead, open it up this way, putting your 2 darts in front, right? So you're going to put in your 2 darts here in front, and then you're going to go ahead putting the darts at the back also. So you're going to also go ahead, that's the back on the 2 sides. After that, you join the 2 shoulder, use bias to finish the sleeve. To start with the short. So the first thing I'm going to do for this short is to mark. So how you're going to determine the fold you use here is just your hip measurement divided by 4 plus like 4. Your hip measurement divided by 4 plus extra like 4 inches or 5 inches. It's better to have more than to have less. So my hip measurement divided by 4 is 12 plus extra I used extra 1, 2, 3, 4, so extra almost 4.5 inches what I have here. So the next thing you're going to do after that, so as you can see, my fabric is folded into two. So and then the next thing you're going to do is to put in, go ahead and mark about 1/2 inch on this side, like straight line of 1/2 inch on this end. This is normally done on a pattern paper, but since I'm drawing it straight on this fabric, just pay attention and you guys and try to follow along, you understand it. So since I'm not using pattern paper, just go ahead and draw one line, 1/2 inch on the end of your fabric here. So guys, after that, the next thing you're going to do, so the length I'm using here is from my waist to where I want the pant to be. So I want it to be about 16.5 is the length of the short, right? So I added extra 1.5 inch to it, 1 inch of folding the end and 1/2 inch for this top part here. So the next thing I'm going to do is, so guys, that 1/2 inch I'm going to use to join this top part to the body of the top. I've marked it out here, so I know now that the only thing I have left is just the extra 1 inch to fold the end, you understand? So I'm supposed to have an extra, my length is 16.5 plus extra 1.5 added to it for my 1 inch of folding the end, 1/2 inch of the top part. But I've marked out that 1/2 inch for the top part now. So what I'm left with for the length is just the 1 inch to fold the end. So after that, the next thing you're going to do now is to mark your waist to your hip measurement, your waist to your crotch measurement. I'm going to put in a picture on how to measure that. Just basically you sit down and then you place your tape from your waist to the chair, almost to the chair, and then you find your waist, your crotch measurement, sorry. So for me, I'm using 12 inches, so I'm going to just mark at 12 inches here is the length I'm using. And normally for jumpsuit, sometimes they drop the length by 1 inch. That's from your crotch to your from your crotch measurement, right? You're going to drop it by 1 inch, just so that when you sit down it's not like very tight. So sometimes they drop it by 1 inch, sometimes they drop it by 1/2 inch. So it depends on you what you want to drop it by. So I might just go ahead and drop it by 1.5, sorry, by 0.5. So instead of using my crotch, which is 12, I'm using 12.5 here, so that when I sit down it's not like digging into your body. So the next thing you're going to do is on this crotch line, I'm going to just go ahead from this end, this line that I made here, right? This line that I made here, I'm going to just, from this line is going to now be my starting point to put in my hip measurement. So my hip measurement is 48 divided by 4 is 12, but I'm going to add 1/2 inch. If you look at the jumpsuits on the thumbnail, you find that the top part is tight, but the bottom part has a little bit of ease to it. So I'm just going to try to add 1/2 inch. If you want, you can add 0.5 to it, right? So I'm going to sorry, 0.25 to it, but I'm going to add 1/2 inch to it. So what I'm going to use is now 48 divided by 4, which is 12, and then 48 being my hip measurement. So and then plus extra 1/2 inch. So this 1/2 inch is not my seam allowance. This 1/2 inch is just basically my ease, like the free part of the cloth that I'm going to have when I'm done. So 1/2 inch is what I'm using. I'm going to just mark that here. So 12.5 is what I'm going to mark all the way through. So I'm just going to mark that. So guys, after that, so you see I've marked mine all the way up here. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to get my waist measurement, which is 36, like we used at the top. So what I'm going to do is 36 divided by 4, which is 9. I'm going to add, okay, so this is the 9. I'm not going to give it ease at the waist. I'm going to use just exactly my waist, because the waist of the pant is attaching to the waist of the top, and I didn't give any ease for the top, so there's no need of giving ease at the pant part, because if I do that, then the pant will be wider. Like when I go to join it, it will not fit in, because the length of the waist for the pant will be longer than the waist of the top, if that makes sense. So what I'm going to do is exactly what I used for the bottom of the top, which is the waist, is what I'm going to use for the top part of the pant, which is this part here, so that when the two of them meet, it will be exactly the same measurement. So what I'm going to do now is my waist measurement divided by 4, which is 9, right? 36 divided by 4, which is 9, plus extra 2 inches, which is 11. I'm going to, so I've marked that here, and then I'm going to just connect it from my waist to my hip. So waist to hip is somewhere about 10, so I'm going to just mark that here. So on this line is where I'm just going to connect it, right? So you see, I'm just going to connect from this point to this point here. I'm just going to blend it in, but yet it's still going to be inside of this line, right? It's still inside of the line. So I've connected this line here. So do is to use that same hip measurement to divide it by 4. So for me, it's 48 divided by 4 is 12. Divided by extra 4 again. So now that's what will be your crotch. So if I divide mine, it will be 3. So you're going to put in 3, and that's what I have here. So after that, you just go ahead and mark this point here. Just give it a curve here. You can go ahead and use about 2 inches or 1.5 here. It depends on you. So I'm just going to go ahead, and what the next thing you're going to do is to go ahead and just draw about half an inch for your seam allowance. So I'm just going to draw half an inch all the way down here. So you're just going to place in half an inch of seam allowance all the way. So coming down here is just this end, the way it is here. So I'm just going to also put in my extra half an inch here. So this is going to be my seam allowance. You're going to curve it all the way down here. Guys, the next thing I'm going to do, as you can see, I've gone ahead and cut it out. The next thing I'm going to do now is just to mark in my dart. So my dart is going to start from this line. I'm going to just mark in my dart, the same 4 inches I used for the top part. So I'm just going to mark that here, and then I'm going to mark my dart is going to stop. So my hip line was on this here. My hip line was at 11 or so. So, but my dart is going to stop 2 inches before that, which is going to be at 9. So your dart is going to, when you put your hip line, your dart is going to stop 2 inches before that. So I'm going to mark my dart here, half an inch on each side, and then you're going to connect it. So this is going to be my dart, and I'm going to go ahead and notch it so that I will know that this is the dart when I go to transfer it. So I'm going to use back panel. So the same width that you use for your front panel, but now again you're going to fold up to like 5 add about like 5 inches on the fold for cutting the back panel. So what we are going to do now is we're going to use the front panel to trace the back one. So basically what you're going to do is from the crotch area at the back here, so you're going to just place your fabric here. Try to place the front panel that you use. Remember, this is our front panel, but make sure you have about 2 inches here for to extend the back crotch, but then add half an inch to that 2 inches for seam allowance here. So what I have here is 2.5 extra. So I'm just going to make sure that I have 2.5 extra here. The 0.5 is for my seam allowance, but the 2 inches is for extending the crotch. So you see I have 2.5 here. So I'm just going to mark that out. And then another thing you should do is to also go ahead and trace out all the lines from your front panel except the seam allowances. So I'm just going to go ahead and trace it. I'm going to start by just folding this part here, and then draw out the line. This will be easier on a pattern paper, but I'm not using that because I just prefer to cut my fabric one time, and then you just fold in. You see, I'm just folding it out and tracing out all my seam allowances. So that half an inch I added on this side, I'm going to fold it back again just to trace out my front panel over again. So it's just that you're tracing out the same pattern that you had before, but this time around you are not including the seam allowances. So you see I've done that. So the remaining one is just the side seam. So now I'm just going to fold it again. I know where my lines are, and then I'm going to trace it out. So you see, so guys, as you can see, I've traced out the basic part of this pant. You can see my curve from the waist of the pant. You can see my center part, and then I also marked out where my crotch for the back started. So to tell you guys, so you're going to, whatever you're using, try to add about 5 inches at the top part here. So extend your back panel by 5 inches of width and the top part by 5 inches of width, just so you can be able to work and put in all the measurements that you need. So I'm going to remember the hip measurement I had here was about 12.5, right? So that 12.5, you're supposed to take it up here and put in half of it. So for me, I'm going to find the center of that 12.5 on the hip here, on the waist here. So that's about, it's going to be about 6.25, which is somewhere here. And then I'm going to take half of that 6.25 that I have, which is my hip measurement. I just took my hip measurement that I had initially, I took it up to this top part here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to find half of this. So that's going to be about 3.5 around 3.15 or so, so somewhere here. And then you're going to take that your crotch measurement that you had for the front. For me that was 3. I'm going to take it, put that 3 on top of this here. So I'm going to mark it up here, and I'm going to extend it to my crotch, which is that one 2.5 that I marked here. So all you have to do is, the reason why you need to get the half of this pattern here is just so that you can mark this point. So you see I've marked it here. I'm going to extend it to this my back pattern, which is 2.5 from this end. So I'm just going to extend it to this here, and then you're going to connect it. So I'm just going to mark it like a straight line. So this here is now our back pattern. So I'm just going to mark in my crotch. So this is going to be my back crotch. So guys, let me explain this again because I know it's confusing at this point. So basically, you're going to use your front pattern, trace out the back pattern, right? But only thing you're going to remove is the seam allowances that you added before, because you're going to still put in the seam allowances for the back, right? So I just marked out the basic pattern of this front bodies on the pattern I'm using for the back, except this time around, remember when we were doing the front, we came in by 1/2 inch for our seam allowance. The only thing you're going to do is just to come in about 2.5 or so, 2.5 or 3 inches in here, so that if you want to use 1 inch for your seam allowance, then make it 3 inches. If you want to use 1/2 inch for the seam allowance, then you work with 2.5. So you just put in, marking 2.5 here, and then put in your front pattern bodies again, right? So you see I just came in here by 2.5. Let's say there's a straight line here, just forget about that 2.5 now. You see I just put in my front pattern inside of this here, and then after that, the next thing I did, after tracing that, the next thing I did is just to measure out my hip measurement, right? My hip measurement that I had initially, and just use it to find that measurement I had. You're going to use this straight line, because remember this part is already curved for your waist. You're going to use this straight line at the crotch for your landmark, and then you're going to find half of it. So the half of it for me was about 6.25, which was here, because my hip here is about 12.5 was what I used. So half of it is what I'm using here, and then you're going to, I determine the halfway of this, which is this line that I made here. After determining the half of this here, I determined another half of it again. So it's almost like I'm dividing it into 4. So the next half I divided, it was about 3. So that 3, I just used my crotch measurement from this part here, my front crotch measurement, which was 3. I marked it. I just went up by 3. This line that I'm using here is just to help me, because you know you have your butt at the back and you need the back of your pant to be higher than the front. So that's why you're using it to determine the length. So that's why I marked that 3 inches here and then used it to curve into this line. So after marking that, going up by 3 inches, the next thing you're going to do is just to connect that 3 inches to that 1.5 that you made before, right? That 2.5 that you made before, that line here, this line here. So you make a straight line to that point, and then at this point you give it a curve. And then what you're going to do now is you're going to go back in again and measure. Now you're measuring your waist line. So I'm going to measure my waist pattern, which is from this point to this point, right? My waist pattern from my front, the front of the pants, which was your waist measurement divided by 4 plus extra 2 inches, which is what I have here. My waist measurement was 36, divided by 4 is 9, plus extra 2 inches is 11. So that's what I have here. So you're going to take that 11 and then you're going to go up this way. And from that 11, so this is the line of my pant. This is the straight line for this waist here of my front panel. So you're going to put that 11 inches on this line. Whatever measurement you got for your waist, you're going to place it on this line. Just put it and make sure that it falls. So 11 inches is here. So my line is going to stop here. So it's here. I'm going to connect it in a straight line. So after this now, I'm going to just come down here and put in 1 inch, right? Come down here and put in 1 inch and then connect this line to this line. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect this to this here. Connect this to this part here, and then what you're going to do now is just now at this point you've forgotten about all the front pattern that you drew. You're just off seam allowance. We are done. So you're just going to join your 1/2 inch of seam allowance. But when you come to the back, remember you're still going to put your zip, right? The zip of the pant is going to come in here. So what we are going to do, I'm going to mark at least 8 inches. It depends on how long your zip is, and then I'm going to mark 1.5, which was what I used before, what I marked for my front pattern. So I'm just going to mark that here. So this is going to be my zip allowance here. So you see, I've put in my zip allowance, and then I'm going to go up again and mark the 1/2 inch I'm going to use to join the waist of this to the waist of the back pattern, and then come down here also, marking another extra 1/2 inch of seam allowance here. So that's basically it. I'm just going to go ahead and cut this out. So guys, I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to cut this now. So I'm going to start here. So guys, to cut this out, all I have to do now is to I'm going to start that for the back. All you have to do is to fold that zip allowance here. So I folded it in. So you see, this is my zip for the center back. So I just folded it in, and then I'm going to mark about 4 inches that I use for the top part, breast point. So this is what I marked, and then I marked it up here also. So you're going to mark it from this distance to this distance. It can't be straight because this waist is this way, so it can't be going down straight here. So you have to use this as the line to mark it from. So I marked 4 inches of distance here, marked 1/2 inch on this side and connected it. So what I have to do now, as you can see, I've cut everything out. So you see, you cut all the way down here, and then you see I left my seam allowance all the way here, and then getting to this point, I cut out my zip, and then 1/2 inch for the top part here to join it to the body. And then I also, when I got to this here, you see this line here was from my front pattern. So when I got to this point, I added 1/2 inch for joining the side. So that's basically it. I'm going to go ahead and start joining mine. So I'm going to first join the crotch, putting my dart for both the front and the back. So guys, as you can see, the first thing I did is to, like I said before, join the shoulder of your front to the shoulder of the back, putting your dart. And then the next thing I did is to finish up the bottom of my pants. So just put in the dart, join the two fronts together. You see, join the two fronts together, put in the dart, and then join it at the waist to the front body. So my front bodice, I joined it at the waist. So my front bodice is done. This is the back pattern. So you see what I did? I closed up the back pattern like halfway through, and then stopped once I got to the part I left for my zip allowance. This is my zip allowance here. It goes up to the back of the top, and then you see I joined my dart at the back to this one here. So you see I just joined the back pattern together, and then left space for my zip, putting my dart. By then I've already done the top part, putting the dart. So I just join this side together, join this side together. I like to have my seams at the side in case if I ever need to take it in, I just take it in. But if you want, you can just go ahead, join your fronts together once, and then join the bottom together once, and then bring the two of them and join it together, if that makes any sense. So this is what I have here. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to just go in now and put in my bias, close up the side to the end and fold the end. Do the same thing on this side, put in my bias, use bias to close up this end, and then finish it up, close it to the end and fold the pant, and then join the crotch also. So you see the crotch is still here. I still have to go ahead and join this together, and then finish my neckline, put my zip. So that's how I'm going to do it now. This is it here. As you can see, this is the back. See the zip. You see my waist, the waist of my jumpsuit here. See the dart at the back. So this is what it looks like. This is the front. So I'm going to be making a different jumpsuit very soon. So if you have any question, or if there's something you don't understand, please just leave it in the comment section so that in the next video I can just try to explain it more. So, but that's it for this one here. So this is it. This is the front, and I also gave it a belt. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. Bye.